thought it F me. I didn't like that. And so I have this...
Once the charming heartthrob of the silver screen, Rock Hudson lived a life full of fame, hidden relationships, and deep loneliness. His story is both captivating and heartbreaking, with no children to carry his legacy and a tragic end that shocked the world. But what happened to his wealth after he passed? And why does his life feel like a story left unfinished? Join us as we delve into the life, legacy, and dark secret of Rock Hudson. Abandoned house, Rock say. Hudson's very first home was in Winnetka, Illinois, a small and peaceful suburb not far from the busy streets of Chicago. The house where he was born was simple and plain, like many others in the neighborhood. It stood on a quiet street, with a small front yard and a narrow walkway leading to the door. It was a small, working-class home with just enough room for the basics, and although it lacked luxury, it had the feeling of comfort that early childhood memories often hold. When he left Winnetka and went to Los Angeles, he lived in rented rooms and small apartments. He stayed in tiny, cramped spaces, often just one room with a small kitchen area and barely enough furniture. These apartments felt more like places to sleep than homes, but they were important steps. As he slowly found his way in Hollywood, his living spaces improved little by little. After he got his first few small roles, he was able to move into a better apartment. This apartment was still modest, but brighter and comfortable. When his career truly took off and he became one of Hollywood's biggest stars, everything about his life started to change, especially his homes. He bought a house in the hills above the famous Sunset Strip, a place where the air felt fresher and the views stretched far beyond the city streets below. The house had been built back in 1937 and sat comfortably on over a third of an acre. It was more than just a house. It was a full property, complete with a 2-story main house, a separate guest house, and a 2-car garage. Inside the main house, which spread over 2,803 square feet, the style blended charm and modern touches. There were high, vaulted ceilings that gave the rooms a wonderful sense of space, and classic fixtures that added character. One of the most special corners of the house was the wraparound bar in the den, a perfect spot for gathering with friends. There were 3 cozy bedrooms and 4 bright bathrooms, with wide windows and balconies that opened up to breathtaking views of the city below. Stepping outside, there was even more to enjoy: a swimming pool and a welcoming backyard patio, perfect for sunny afternoons and quiet evenings. Hudson owned this home for a short time in the late 1970s, but before that, he had another charming place nearby. This earlier house was shared with his ex-wife. It was a simple 2-bedroom cottage built in 1949, filled with warm details like hardwood floors, beautiful French doors, and a cozy eat-in kitchen that felt just right for quiet meals at home. After their marriage ended, Hudson moved on to what became his most beloved home, famously known as the Castle. Perched high on a ridge above Beverly Hills, the castle became Hudson's private haven from 1962 until the end of his life in 1985. It was a Spanish-style mansion with its white stucco walls and red tile roof, standing proudly behind a heavy gate and surrounded by steep cliffs on 3 sides. This natural protection gave him the privacy he deeply valued. This house had an interesting twist. According to a friend, Hudson often left the gates and the front door unlocked, as if he enjoyed the excitement of unpredictability. In his authorized biography, Hudson gave a detailed description of the house. He spent over 2 decades pouring care and attention into this home. Inside, the castle felt almost like a dream brought to life. There were 2 large living rooms for relaxing and hosting, a private steam room and gym for quiet moments, and even a personal theater with a small stage and footlights. The house had 4 fireplaces that added warmth and charm throughout the seasons. Hudson loved to name the rooms, and he fondly called his bedroom the Blue Room because of its deep, royal blue carpet. His bed was a grand wooden 4-poster, carved with great detail, and one of his favorite spaces was the playroom. Once just an old garage, it later became a fully equipped private cinema. One wall held a prized collection of rare records, while the wooden stage gave him a place to rehearse his roles. The style of the castle was bold and strong, with dark wood, pewter candle holders, and even zebra skins spread across the floors. On the patio, sculptures of young boys stood proudly, watching over the red-tiled space that led to an enormous 40-foot pool with a jacuzzi and a lion's head fountain. Nearby, there was an outdoor barbecue so large it could easily cook for 100 guests. The grounds stretched over 3.5 acres, complete with a greenhouse overflowing with vibrant orchids. For most of his years at the castle, Hudson lived quietly with his loyal housekeeper and a group of 7 dogs. Sometimes he shared the house with a companion, but much of the time, it was his peaceful retreat. After he passed away, it was only fitting that his memorial was held at the castle, the home that had been his sanctuary, surrounded by hundreds of friends and memories that filled every corner of the place he had loved so deeply. Secret relationships and marriage. By the time Rock Hudson's began gaining momentum, he and his agent, Henry Wilson, worked carefully to keep the actor's private life away from public attention. The world admired Hudson as a heartthrob, a leading man on screen. But behind the scenes, there was a truth they fought hard to hide. In 1955, things took a dangerous turn when Confidential magazine prepared to release a story revealing Hudson's secret life as a gay man. This was a threat that could have destroyed his career and reputation in a time when Hollywood was not kind to such revelations. To shield Hudson from the scandal, Wilson sacrificed 2 of his other clients. He handed over damaging details about Rory Calhoun's time spent in prison and Tab Hunter's earlier arrest at a party in 1950. These disclosures were meant to divert attention and buy time, sparing Hudson from public exposure. In Hollywood, though, Hudson's secret was something of an open one. Among his peers, his intimacy preference wasn't exactly hidden. Many who worked with him, including famous co-stars like Julie Andrews, Mia Farrow, Elizabeth Taylor, and Susan St. James, were aware of his truth, but chose to keep it confidential out of loyalty and respect. Friends such as Audrey Hepburn and Carol Burnett also kept his secret close to their hearts, protecting him from the harsh judgment of the public eye. Not long after the scare from Confidential magazine, Hudson made a surprising move by marrying Phyllis Gates, who was not only Wilson's secretary, but also someone he had been seeing for a while. Gates would later describe their relationship as genuine, saying they dated for several months and even lived together for a couple of months before Hudson unexpectedly proposed. She insisted that she married him out of love, not as a cover for his private life, despite later rumors suggesting otherwise. At the time, the media buzzed with news of their wedding, and Hudson appeared to embrace his role as a devoted husband. But the marriage did not last. After 3 years, in April 1958, Gates filed for divorce, citing mental cruelty, a common legal claim used in those days to speed up divorce proceedings. Hudson chose not to fight the case, and Gates walked away with alimony of $250 a week for the next decade. She also held a share in Hudson's independent film company, 7 Pictures Corporation, and later pursued legal action against him to claim a portion of another company he established after their separation, called Gibraltar Productions. Despite all of this, Gates never married again. Years later, in the biography Rock Hudson, His Story, written by Gates with Sarah Davidson, Hudson's life away from the cameras was explored more deeply. The book revealed that Hudson had a close friendship with the novelist Armistead Maupin, with Maupin even claiming they had a brief romantic encounter. The book went on to name several of Hudson's other lovers over the years, including Jack Coates, Tom Clark, who would later write a memoir called Rock Hudson, Friend of Mine, the actor and stockbroker Lee Garlington, and Mark Christian, who would eventually sue Hudson's estate after his demise. In 2005, biographer Bob Hoffler published The Man Who Invented Rock Hudson, a deep dive into the life of Hudson's agent, Henry Wilson. Hoffler revealed to the Village Voice that Phyllis Gates had at one point tried to blackmail Hudson about his private affairs. In an article for The Advocate, Hoffler also claimed that Gates herself was a lesbian who had suspected from the beginning of their relationship that Hudson was gay. Adding to the mix of rumors and whispers was a long-standing urban legend that Hudson had secretly married fellow entertainer Jim Nabors in the early 1970s. At that time, same-gender marriage was not legally recognized anywhere in the United States. Publicly, Hudson and Nabors were seen as just friends, but the story caught fire. By 1972, the gossip had spread so widely that Mad magazine made a joke about it. Even though it was intended as humor, the rumor stuck around stubbornly over the years. Sadly, it drove a permanent wedge between Hudson and Nabors, and they never spoke to each other again. The tragic death of Rock Hudson. On June 5, 1984, Rock Hudson's condition was broken to him. He was told he had AIDS. At that time, very few people even understood the disease. It had been only a few years since the first known cases surfaced in the United States, and not much longer since scientists had connected HIV as the cause of AIDS. Despite this frightening news, Hudson chose to keep his condition hidden from the public. He pushed on with his career as though nothing had changed, all while quietly searching for hope in the shadows. He traveled across countries, especially to France, chasing the possibility of a cure or at least a treatment that could slow the unstoppable advance of the illness. In those private moments, he fought hard, never letting the outside world see the fear and pain he must have carried every day. By the summer of 1985, things started to shift in a way no one could ignore. On July 16th of that year, Hudson stood beside Doris Day at a press conference to promote her new cable television show. Just a few days earlier, they had filmed together at her ranch in Carmel, California. Cameras captured them walking around the peaceful property as Day's song played in the background. Hudson, however, was barely a shadow of his former self. His face looked lean, his skin pale, and his voice faint. He hardly spoke, and when he did, he admitted he became tired easily. His fragile appearance stunned the public. News outlets replayed the footage over and over again, sparking widespread concern about his health. The sight of him left many feeling both shocked and deeply saddened. Only 2 days after that appearance, Hudson flew to Paris once again, holding on to the hope that treatments abroad might offer relief. But fate struck cruelly when, on July 21st, he collapsed in his hotel room at the Ritz. His publicist tried to control the narrative, announcing that Hudson was battling inoperable liver cancer. He firmly denied any connection to AIDS, claiming that tests were being run for a wide range of possibilities. However, the truth could not stay hidden for long. Just 4 days later, Hudson's French publicist confirmed the devastating reality: Hudson was fighting AIDS. This revelation shook the world. Hudson, a beloved Hollywood figure, became one of the first major celebrities known to be affected by the disease. His diagnosis brought the crisis into the global spotlight in a way few others could have. On July 30, Hudson returned to Los Angeles, his condition so fragile that he had to be moved from the plane by stretcher. He had chartered an entire Boeing 747, making the journey accompanied only by his medical team. From the airport, he was airlifted directly to UCLA Medical Center, where he spent nearly a month receiving care. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, Hudson's health continued to decline. By late August, he left the hospital and settled into his Beverly Hills home, where he would spend his final days under hospice care, surrounded by quiet and privacy. On October 2, 1985, at around 9 in the morning, Hudson passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was only 59 years old. In keeping with his wishes, there was no public funeral. His body was cremated just hours after his passing. Later, a cenotaph was placed in his honor at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Cathedral City. His ashes were scattered in the waters between Wilmington, Los Angeles, and Santa Catalina Island, leaving no fixed resting place, as though, even after his passing, he wished to remain free. Almost immediately, the impact of his battle with AIDS was felt far and wide. In the days following the announcement, People magazine reported that donations to AIDS research soared past $1.8 million, more than doubling the previous year's total. The surge of support reflected how Hudson's openness, even in his final moments, had sparked an urgent response. Congress responded as well, setting aside $221 million toward finding a cure. Public interest grew so rapidly that organizers of Hollywood's AIDS benefit, Commitment to Life, had to switch to a larger venue to accommodate the crowd. Before his passing, Hudson himself had contributed $250,000 to help launch AMFAR, the Foundation for AIDS Research. This organization, born from the efforts of Hudson's doctor Michael Gottlieb and his dear friend Elizabeth Taylor, aimed to fight AIDS with dedicated research and outreach. Still, even as awareness grew, old prejudices were slow to fade. President Ronald Reagan, who had long avoided public discussion of the epidemic, remained largely silent when news of Hudson's illness broke. Although he and his wife Nancy were personal friends of Hudson, Reagan only addressed the matter publicly 2 months later. Privately, however, Reagan did reach out to Hudson with a phone call while he was hospitalized in Paris, and later issued a condolence statement upon Hudson's demise. Despite the challenges, Hudson's legacy found its place in history. He was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a lasting tribute to his contribution to film. Elizabeth Taylor, ever the loyal friend, ensured he was also remembered with a bronze plaque on the West Hollywood Memorial Walk. Years later, in 2002, Hudson's memory was further celebrated with a Golden Palm Star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars, keeping his name alive as a symbol of courage in the face of fear. At the time of his demise in 1985, Hudson's fortune was valued at around $10 million, a sum that would be worth approximately $23 million today when adjusted for inflation. In his will, he left his estate to be divided between charitable causes and his former lover, George Nader, leaving behind a legacy that was far more than just fame and fortune. It was a life of complicated choices, hidden truths, and moments of quiet courage behind the shining lights of Hollywood. The impact of Hudson's diagnosis. When Hudson's diagnosis of AIDS was made public, it set off a massive wave of conversation, not just about his health, but also about his private life. Hudson had long been one of Hollywood's most charming and admired leading men, but this announcement forced the world to see him differently. His intimacy preferences, which had been quietly whispered about for years, suddenly became a topic of headlines. His friend Armistead Maupin, an openly gay writer, eventually stepped forward to confirm what many had only speculated. Maupin revealed that he had told journalist Randy Schultz from the San Francisco Chronicle the truth about Hudson's identity, expressing some frustration that others in the industry, like producer Ross Hunter, who was also gay, had tried to keep it buried in denial. The turning point came in August 1985, when People magazine ran a story that not only focused on Hudson's battle with the disease, but also openly discussed his intimacy preference. With the magazine reaching more than 2.8 million readers at the time, the details of Hudson's life quickly spread far and wide. In the article, many of Hudson's colleagues in show business spoke with empathy and understanding, saying they had known about Hudson's identity and stood by him. Hudson's revelation did more than just fill headlines. It sparked a serious shift in public attention towards AIDS and the urgent need for research and support. His announcement broke through the widespread stigma that had kept conversations about AIDS in the shadows. Suddenly, the disease had a familiar face, someone people admired, someone they never expected to be affected. William M. Hoffman, the playwright behind As Is, a Broadway production centered on AIDS, noted at the time that Hudson's diagnosis shattered the misconception that AIDS was only a concern for certain groups. Joan Rivers, reflecting on her own struggles to rally celebrity support for AIDS benefits just a couple of years before, saw Hudson's courage as a bittersweet turning point. His illness, tragic as it was, forced the American public to confront the reality of the disease. Morgan Fairchild captured it simply when she said Hudson's demise gave AIDS a face, humanizing the epidemic in a way statistics never could. Even as Hudson grew too ill to attend public events, he continued to express hope that his misfortune might help others, sending messages of encouragement to AIDS benefits and recognizing the painful but important role his situation now played in raising awareness. In the wake of Hudson's passing, however, the story took an even more complicated turn. Mark Christian, Hudson's former lover, filed a lawsuit against Hudson's estate, claiming deep emotional trauma. Christian said Hudson had continued their relationship for months after learning of his diagnosis, never disclosing the truth to him. Although Christian tested negative for HIV, the shock of discovering Hudson's condition through a news broadcast devastated him. He also pursued legal action against Hudson's personal secretary, Mark Miller, accusing him of lying about Hudson's health. After a legal battle, Christian was awarded a substantial sum, though it was eventually reduced to $5.5 million. Despite the lawsuit, Christian later spoke in Hudson's defense, insisting that this terrible moment did not define the man he knew. He believed Hudson's silence about his illness was completely out of character, a moment of fear and confusion in an otherwise generous life. More controversy emerged in 1990 when Hudson's publicist Tom Clark and writer Dick Kleiner released a book titled Rock Hudson, Friend of Mine. In it, Clark suggested that Hudson might have contracted HIV from blood transfusions during major heart surgery in 1981. Clark never admitted that he and Hudson had been anything more than roommates, and the book took a harsh view of Christian, painting him in a deeply negative light. Christian responded by filing another lawsuit, this time for libel. Shortly before the public learned of Hudson's condition, he had filmed scenes for the television drama Dynasty, including a passionate, lingering kiss with actress Linda Evans. At the time, Hudson was aware of his diagnosis but had not informed Evans, although medical understanding of HIV transmission was still limited, and it was believed that the virus could not be spread through kissing. Fear and uncertainty were everywhere. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had warned against the exchange of saliva in certain situations, adding to public anxiety. The incident stirred debate, with some feeling that Hudson should have disclosed his illness before filming the scene. The industry itself felt the ripple effects of Hudson's revelation. Ed Asner, who was then president of the Screen Actors Guild, acknowledged that Hudson's announcement had sparked genuine fear in Hollywood. Scripts were hurriedly rewritten to remove intimate scenes, and the Guild soon introduced new guidelines requiring actors to be notified ahead of any open-mouth kissing scenes, giving them the right to refuse such moments without facing penalties. Despite the initial fear, Linda Evans showed grace. She did not express anger towards Hudson and, in fact, chose to take part in a tribute to him at an AIDS benefit later that year, helping to carry forward the message of compassion that Hudson's life, and ultimately his demise, had come to represent. By the time the dust began to settle, Hudson's story had done more than reveal the struggles of one man. It had opened the eyes of millions, shattered silence around AIDS, and forced conversations that were long overdue. His life, marked by talent and charm, became a symbol of a fight far bigger than himself, leaving behind a legacy of awareness and change that stretched far beyond Hollywood screens. The legacy of a Hollywood heartthrob. Rock Hudson's legacy feels like a story that never really ends. Even though many years have passed since he left the world, his name still carries a deep and lasting weight. People still remember him with warmth. And it's not just about the movies he made or the fame he earned, but about the way he touched hearts and changed how people see both Hollywood and life itself. There is something powerful about the way his life continues to inspire, long after the lights of his time have faded. He was once one of the most famous faces on the screen, with a charm that seemed to brighten every scene he stepped into. Viewers everywhere were drawn to him, not only because of his looks, but because he seemed to bring a certain kindness to every role. He acted in a way that felt honest, making people believe in the stories he told. His presence filled the screen so completely that even simple scenes felt special when he was there. There was something gentle about him, something that quietly pulled people in without even trying too hard. What makes his legacy even stronger is how he managed to cross so many borders, not just between roles, but also between different kinds of people. Audiences from every corner of life saw something in him they could love. Some admired him for his strength, while others loved him for his gentle side. It did not matter where people came from or what their lives were like, because Rock Hudson made them all feel welcome. He connected with them in ways that felt deeply personal, as though he was speaking to each viewer alone. Even as time moved on, his films are still watched, and new generations keep discovering him, often surprised by how timeless he feels. They see someone who knew how to carry a story from beginning to end, someone who made every moment count. His talent never feels old, and his performances continue to feel fresh. People keep going back to his films, not only for the stories, but for the way he made them feel. There is always something special waiting there, something that seems to reach across time. But Rock Hudson's legacy is not only about the movies he left behind, it is also about the courage he showed in the face of deep personal struggles. Toward the end of his life, he became a symbol of bravery in a way no one had expected. He boldly faced his challenges, helping to bring light to issues many were too afraid to speak about. Through his honesty, he helped break silence and fear, offering strength to people who felt alone. His openness gave a voice to those who had long been ignored, and this became one of the most important parts of his story. People remember him not just as an actor, but as someone who quietly changed the world. He did it without doing too much, without trying to be a hero. He simply lived his truth when it mattered most, and the world noticed. His bravery helped start conversations that needed to happen, and his name became a sign of hope for many. Even people who never watched his films came to know him for the difference he made in the world beyond the screen. As the years continue to pass, Rock Hudson's name still feels alive in the air. There is a warmth that follows his memory, something that never fades. He reminds people that calm and strength can live together, that kindness can shine just as brightly as fame. People who look back on his story often find themselves feeling something unexpected. They feel a mix of joy and sadness, a sense of wonder at what he gave the world, and a quiet wish that he could have stayed longer. Rock Hudson left behind more than a collection of films. He left a mark that runs deeper than the bright lights of fame. His story is one of charm, talent, bravery, and heart. It is the kind of story that keeps moving forward, carried by the people who continue to remember and celebrate him. His legacy teaches the world that even when someone is gone, their light can still shine, gently but surely, across the years. And so, his name remains, forever part of the world's memory, forever part of its hope. What do you think about Rock Hudson's secret life and how it all played out? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.